By the time Emily stood for her toast, the room had already gone soft with wine and candlelight. The restored lodge looked exactly like the kind of place Monica loved to show off. Dark beams, polished pine floors, tall windows opening toward the black water of the lake. Outside, Vermont was all silver mist and September cold. Inside, everyone was warm, expensive, and loud. I was seated 2 chairs down from Monica at the long rehearsal table, hands folded neatly beside my plate, listening to forks touch china, and people laughed too hard at things that were not funny. Emily lifted her champagne glass and smiled that bright, practiced smile people always mistook for sincerity. At a night like this, she said, I really have to thank the people who made me who I am. A few guests nodded. Someone clinked a glass. She turned toward the far end of the table, where Charles sat with his side of the family, already waiting for praise. My real foundation came from my grandfather's side. The strength, the class, the standards. That's the family I'm proud to come from. There was a low murmur of approval. Monica crossed one leg over the other and smirked into her wine. Emily let the pause stretch, then glanced at me. And Nathan, she laughed lightly like I was in on the joke. Well, every family needs someone practical. He was there. He paid the bills. He kept things running. The table burst into the kind of laughter people use when they smell blood and want permission to enjoy it. He wasn't exactly the heart of anything, Emily added, shrugging. More like the man with the checkbook and the house keys. I heard one of her bridesmaids suck in a breath before laughing too. Monica did not even pretend to be offended. She leaned back in her chair, amused, eyes shining in the candlelight like she'd been waiting years to hear it said out loud. I looked at Emily while she smiled over the rim of her glass. Proud of herself, proud of a room she had turned into an audience. For a moment, all I could hear was a crackle from the stone fireplace and a faint knock of water against the dock outside. I noticed details the way I always did when something mattered. The lipstick stain on Monica's glass, the butter cooling beside my untouched roll, the reflection of chandeliers in the windows behind Emily's head. No one stepped in. No one said my name. No one told her to stop. They watched me the way people watch a scene in a play, waiting to see whether the quiet man would finally break. I didn't. I picked up my napkin, laid it beside my plate, and gave Emily the same calm look I had given her since she was 12 years old and testing how cruel she could be when other people were watching. She mistook silence for weakness. That was her first mistake. I did not ask her to repeat it. I did not give the room what it wanted. Emily was still smiling, her fingers resting lightly on the stem of her glass, enjoying the silence she thought she had created inside me. Around her, the guests shifted in their chairs, waiting for a response. A joke, a wounded speech, some awkward effort to recover the mood and make everyone comfortable again. That had always been my role. Smooth it over, pay for the room, make the reservation, sign the check, absorb the insult, and keep the evening moving. I reached into the inner pocket of my jacket and felt the edge of the envelope I had placed there before dinner. Heavy paper, silver stock, my name written nowhere on it. I had chosen it that morning in the study, sliding the seal closed with steady hands while the house was quiet. Then I stood. The scraping sound of my chair against the wood floor cut across the room harder than any raised voice could have. A few conversations died immediately. Monica looked at me with open amusement, chin lifted, as if I were finally beginning the small dramatic performance she expected. "Oh, Nathan," she said, smiling into her wine. "Don't be sensitive. It was a toast." Emily gave a little laugh. "Come on. It was funny. Funny." I picked up my glass, took a single sip of water, and set it back down. Then I walked the length of the table without hurry. The chandeliers threw warm gold across the silverware. I could smell rosemary from the lamb no one had finished, butter cooling into the mashed potatoes, expensive perfume hanging in a room like a second layer of heat. When I reached Emily's place setting, she looked up at me, still certain she was in control. I placed a sealed silver envelope beside her champagne glass, not in front of her, not in her hand, just neatly to the right, where the candlelight caught the metallic paper. Her smile faded a fraction. "What's this?" I met her eyes, then Monica's. "Something for your grandfather to open," I said. That was all. Charles straightened slightly from the other end of the table. Monica's expression changed, but only for a second. Then she waved a hand, as if dismissing a servant from the room. Emily looked around, embarrassed now that she had not gotten the reaction she wanted. Nathan, seriously? What is this supposed to mean? I did not answer. I buttoned my jacket, turned, and walked toward the doors of the banquet hall. Behind me, I heard the whisper start of speculation, the little eager rustle of people who sense another scene beginning. Monica said my name once, sharp now, no longer amused. Emily called after me again, louder this time. I kept walking. The night outside hit cold and clean. The lake was black glass under the moon, and the gravel beneath my shoes sounded crisp as I crossed the drive. From inside the lodge, through the tall windows, I could still see them gathered around the table, leaning toward the envelope like it was part of the entertainment. They thought I was hurt. They thought I was being dramatic. They thought I would come back after a walk, sit down, and let them laugh it off over dessert. I got into my car, started the engine, and left the lodge behind in the mirror without looking back. The morning after the dinner, the house was quiet in the way it always was after late night. Soft light came through the kitchen windows, pale and clean, touching the marble counters Monica insisted on importing from Italy. Coffee brewed on schedule. The thermostat adjusted itself at exactly 6:30. On the surface, nothing had changed. Emily came downstairs barefoot, wrapped in one of the robes I had bought her last winter. Her phone was already in her hand. She scrolled, frowned slightly, then opened again like the screen might correct itself. "Mom," she said, casual at first, "my car just declined on Uber." Monica didn't look up from her tablet. "Call the bank. It happens." Emily tapped again, slower this time. "No, it says access error." I imagined the exact message. I had approved the wording myself. Monica finally glanced over, annoyed more than concerned. "Nathan probably flagged something after his little performance last night. He'll fix it." Emily exhaled, relieved by that explanation. "Yeah, he always does." "Always." She poured coffee, added too much sugar, stirred without tasting it. Her phone buzzed again. She checked, frowned deeper. "My savings account isn't loading either." Monica waved a hand. "System issue. End of quarter, maybe." But she reached for her own phone anyway. I knew the moment she logged in. There was always a pause, a stillness when people expect numbers to appear and they don't. Then the second attempt. Then the tightening in the jaw. "That's strange," Monica said, quieter now. Emily looked up. "What?" "Nothing." Monica's voice sharpened, defensive, probably maintenance. Across town, a scheduled payment failed at 8:02 a.m., a second one at 8:07. By 8:15, 3 automatic transfers had stopped processing entirely. Emily's phone buzzed again. This time she read it out loud, without thinking. "Your scheduled payment could not be completed." She laughed once, uncertain. "Okay, that's actually weird." Monica stood now, no longer relaxed. She moved toward the study, heels sharp against the floor. "I'll call him." She dialed. It rang, and rang. No answer. Emily leaned against the counter, still not worried, just irritated. He's probably still sulking. He'll call back. Monica didn't respond. She tried again, straight to voicemail. In the garage, the car service app showed no active account. At the country club, a membership charge was declined before noon. A lunch reservation, one Monica had mentioned twice the night before, disappeared from the system without notice. Small things, individually meaningless. Together, a pattern. Emily refreshed her banking app again. Slower now, her thumb hovering just a second longer before tapping. This isn't funny anymore. Monica lowered her phone, her expression no longer amused, no longer dismissive. For the first time, there was something else there. Not panic. Not yet. Just a faint, unfamiliar edge of uncertainty. "He's overreacting," Emily said, more to herself than anyone else. "He'll calm down." Monica nodded, but it was delayed. Mechanical. "Yes," she said. "He always does." They still believed that I would come back, that I would fix it, that whatever had started last night would end the same way it always had, with me restoring everything they never once thought could disappear. Years before the dinner, before the envelope, before any of this needed to happen, there was a summer afternoon that never left me. It was hot in that slow, heavy way Vermont gets in July, the kind of heat that settles into the wood of the deck and lingers in the air long after sunset. Monica had insisted on hosting a barbecue, linen napkins outside, imported wine sweating in silver buckets, everything arranged to look effortless. I stood by the grill, turning steaks at exactly the right moment, listening to conversations drift behind me, laughter, glass against glass, the soft hum of people who believed they were in good company. Emily was on the far side of the deck with her friends. 17, bright, sharp in a way that cuts more than it builds. I wasn't meant to hear her. "That's not my real dad," she said casual, like she was explaining something obvious. "He's just there." One of her friends laughed. "What do you mean?" Emily didn't hesitate. "He pays for everything. House school trips. It's like having a personal ATM that also fixes stuff." More laughter. "And your actual dad?" another girl asked. Emily shrugged. "Different story. But that side of the family, that's where I actually come from." I remember the exact sound the grill made in that moment. A small flare as fat hit the flame. The smell of smoke rising sharp and clean. I didn't turn around. I didn't interrupt. I let her finish. "Honestly," she added, lowering her voice just enough to make it feel like a secret, "he's useful. That's about it." Something in me went very still. Not anger, not shock, just a quiet adjustment, like a piece falling into place where it had always belonged. I plated the food, carried it out, smiled when expected, sat at the table, and listened to her speak to me like nothing had happened. "Thanks, Nathan," she said, not looking up from her phone. I nodded once. Of course. Monica didn't notice. Or, if she did, she chose not to. That night, after everyone left and the house settled into silence, I sat alone in the study. The window was open just enough to let the cool air in. Papers were spread across the desk. Nothing unusual, just the usual flow of accounts, ownership structures, documents waiting for signatures. I looked at them differently. Not emotionally. Practically. If that was how I was seen, if that was my function, then there was no reason to leave anything exposed. No reason to assume permanence. No reason to build anything that depended on gratitude or respect. I opened a new folder on my laptop. No label anyone would question. No obvious purpose. Just a place to begin. I didn't confront her. I didn't correct her. I didn't change how I acted the next day. But from that afternoon forward, I stopped building a shared life and started building something that only I controlled. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part people never understand. They expect one big move, one dramatic decision, a moment where everything shifts overnight. But real control is built slowly, in places no one bothers to look. The first changes were small, routine, invisible, a signature here, a clause there. I started with the trusts. Nothing aggressive, just adjustments. Language tightened, contingencies clarified, beneficiary structures expanded for flexibility. That was the word I used when the attorney asked. Flexibility. It sounds harmless, responsible, even. Monica signed the first set, without reading more than the title page. She trusted process more than detail. Always had. "What is this one?" she asked, flipping through 20 pages in under 10 seconds. "Standard restructuring." I said, "Tax positioning." She nodded, already reaching for the pen. "As long as it saves us money." It did, just not in the way she thought. Over the next year, I moved through everything that mattered. Ownership paths inside the companies were adjusted, quietly rerouted through layered entities that looked identical on the surface. Same names, same letterheads, different control. Profit distributions were redefined, future revenue streams redirected, not removed, never abruptly. That would raise questions, just guided elsewhere. Emily never noticed anything. She wasn't meant to. Her world ran on outcomes, not mechanisms. If the car arrived, if the tuition was paid, if the card worked, then the system was fine. She never asked how, Monica asked occasionally, but only when something required a signature. Refinancing documents, insurance updates, tax optimization packets. Each one prepared carefully. Clean, professional, indistinguishable from routine financial maintenance. "Do I need to read all this?" she asked once, standing in the doorway of my study, already impatient. "You can," I said calmly, "but it's standard." She sighed, stepped in, and signed where I indicated. "Just tell me where," she said, handing the pen back. I always did. Every document had a purpose. Some created distance between assets and individuals. Some redefined ownership in ways that only mattered under specific conditions. Some introduced clauses that would never activate unless something changed, unless someone chose to redefine the relationship. I built redundancies, fallback positions, legal walls inside ordinary paperwork. Nothing illegal, nothing reckless, just precise, deliberate, patient. Years passed like that. Holidays, vacations, dinners, public appearances where everything looked exactly the way it was supposed to. Monica hosting, Emily smiling, me standing just behind the structure, making sure it held. They believed the system existed for them, that it would always function the same way, that my role inside it was permanent. They never asked what would happen if I stepped out of it. They never considered that the structure itself could change. By the time the last document was signed, there was nothing left exposed. No direct access, no unsecured path, no assumption left unprotected. Everything they thought they owned only worked as long as I allowed it to. Charles didn't open the envelope immediately. At first, it was part of performance. He held it between his fingers at the table, turning it slightly so the candlelight caught the metallic surface. The room leaned toward him again, the same way they had leaned toward Emily during her toast, expectant, entertained. "Well," he said, smiling thinly, "this should be interesting." Monica watched with a kind of impatient curiosity. Emily looked irritated now, not amused. The moment had shifted away from her, and she didn't like that. "Just open it," she said. Charles slid a finger under the seal and broke it cleanly. No hesitation. Inside was a single folded sheet and a small key. He paused. The room quieted in a different way this time. Not laughter, not anticipation. Something else. Charles unfolded the paper slowly, eyes scanning the first line. The change in his expression was immediate, but subtle. A tightening, a focus. Monica noticed. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he read it again, carefully. The paper was simple, clean, no unnecessary language. A location, a name, instructions, and a reference number tied to a private deposit drawer at a regional credit union 2 towns over. Emily leaned forward. "What does it say?" Charles looked up, but not at her, at Monica. "Where's Nathan?" he asked. Monica frowned. "I don't know." He walked out like a child. Charles folded the paper once. Precise, controlled. "This isn't a joke." That was the first moment the room stopped treating it like entertainment. The next morning, Charles went alone. The credit union sat on a quiet street, unremarkable, the kind of place people pass without seeing. Brick exterior, frosted glass, no display of wealth, no suggestion of what it held inside. He presented the paper, the reference number, the key. The clerk didn't smile, didn't ask questions, just nodded and disappeared into the back. When she returned, she carried a narrow metal drawer and placed it in front of him with both hands. "Private room 3, she said. Charles took it without speaking. Inside the room, the air was still, neutral, designed to hold secrets without reacting to them. He set the drawer on the table and unlocked it. The sound was soft, final. Inside, everything was arranged with the same precision I use in every other part of my life. Documents, tabs, signatures, not copies, originals. Charles sat down slowly as he began to read. Company control transfers, completed. Ownership paths, redirected. Profit channels, rerouted into entities with names he didn't recognize. Trust structures, amended. Beneficiaries, reassigned. Conditions, activated. Every page told the same story from a different angle. Control had already moved, not recently, not suddenly, years ago, piece by piece, quietly, irreversibly. By the time he reached the final document, his hands were no longer steady. At the bottom of the last page was a date. Not from last night, not from this week. From 3 years earlier. Charles leaned back in the chair, the paper still in his hand, and stared at nothing for a long moment. Then he said out loud to the empty room, as if hearing it would make it less real, "He's already gone." They didn't understand the name at first. That was the part one expected. Charles drove back from the credit union in silence, the documents sealed again inside the drawer, the key resting heavy in his pocket. By the time he walked into the house, Monica was already waiting in the living room, arms crossed. Emily pacing near the windows with her phone still in her hand, like it might suddenly fix everything. "Well," Monica demanded. Charles didn't answer immediately. He set the drawer on the table, slower than usual, like the weight of it had changed. "Sit down," he said. "I'm not sitting down," Emily snapped. "Just tell us what this is." Charles looked at her, really looked this time, and something in his expression made her stop moving. "Everything is gone," he said. Monica laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "Don't be dramatic." "I'm not," he replied. "Control, the companies, the distributions, the trusts, it's already been transferred." Emily shook her head. "Transferred to who?" Charles hesitated. That was the only moment he showed uncertainty. Then he opened the drawer, pulled out one of the documents, and turned it toward them. The name sat there in clean, printed letters. Luke Mercer. Emily frowned. "Who is that?" Monica's voice was colder. "Is that one of his lawyers?" "No," Charles said quietly. "He's a beneficiary." The room went still. "That's not possible," Monica said. "There's no Luke Mercer in this family." "I know," Charles replied. Emily stepped closer, scanning the page like she could force it to make sense. "Then why would he give anything to some random person?" I could have answered that, but I wasn't there. Years earlier, before Vermont, before Monica, before any of them, there had been a warehouse, old structure, faulty supports. A contract I shouldn't have taken, but did. The collapse was fast, loud for half a second, then nothing but pressure and dust. I remember the weight more than the sound, the way everything went quiet under it, the way time stretched in that space between breathing and not. They told me later it took 12 minutes to reach me. It felt longer. The man who pulled me out was not careful. He didn't wait for clearance, didn't follow the standard sequence. He moved debris with his hands when the tools slowed him down, ignored orders, took risks that didn't belong to him. Luke Mercer's father, firefighter, 39 years old at the time. He got me out. He didn't make it out the same way. I found Luke years later. Not immediately, not publicly, just enough to understand what had been left behind. A family that adjusted quietly. A son who learned early how unstable things could become. I didn't introduce myself as anything important, just someone who owed a debt. Over time, I made sure certain things didn't become problems for them. Education, housing stability, opportunities placed carefully in front of him, never forced. He never knew the full structure behind it. Only that doors opened, that someone somewhere had decided he wouldn't be left to struggle alone. That mattered more than explanation. Back in the living room, Emily looked up from the paper, anger rising now. "So he just gives everything to some guy we've never heard of?" Monica's voice sharpened. "This is temporary. It has to be. There are laws. There are protections." Charles closed the drawer. "No," he said. "There were protections." He looked at them both, his voice steady but lower now. "You just never realized who they were for." Emily stepped back, shaking her head. "He can't do this." But he already had. And the man they had reduced to function, the one who paid, fixed, and stayed quiet, had chosen someone else to build something that would last. Not for them. For a stranger with a history they never cared to know. Monica didn't sleep that night. The house felt different, even before anything visibly changed. Not empty, not broken, just unstable, like something underneath it had shifted. but the surface hadn't caught up yet. By morning, she was already in the study. Paper spread across the desk, glasses low on her nose as she flipped through documents she had signed years ago without thinking. Emily stood in the doorway, arms wrapped tight around herself. "This doesn't make sense," she said. "Your name is on everything." Monica didn't answer, because for the first time, she was actually reading, not skimming, not assuming. Reading. The house deed was there. Her name, clear and centered. But beneath that, layers. Separate entities tied to land rights. Loan structures routed through holding companies. Service agreements linked to accounts she no longer had access to. She flipped faster now. "Where are the access codes?" she muttered. Emily stepped closer. "What do you mean?" "The property account," Monica said. "Utilities, maintenance, contracts, they're not direct. They're managed." Managed by who? Monica didn't say it. She didn't need to. At 9:12 a.m., the first service interruption notice arrived. Not dramatic, not immediate, just a polite email. Account access required to maintain scheduled services. Monica tried to log in. Denied. She reset the password. The reset didn't go through. She called the number listed. "Ma'am, we'll need authorization from the primary controller on file." "I am the owner," she said sharply. A pause. "According to our records," the voice replied carefully, "you are listed as a residential holder. Control authorization is assigned elsewhere." "Where?" Monica demanded. "I'm not authorized to disclose that without verification." Monica ended the call without another word. Emily watched her, something new creeping into her expression. "Mom." Monica didn't respond. She was already dialing another number. By noon, 3 more systems failed. The landscaping contract paused. The security system restricted access. The private maintenance line no longer recognized her credentials. Each one small, each one manageable. Together, a pattern. Emily walked through the house like she was seeing it for the first time. The high ceilings, the glass walls, the long hallway leading to rooms that suddenly felt conditional. "This is insane," she said. "It's your house." Monica finally looked at her. "No," she said quietly. "It's not." The words hung there, heavy, real. She found the final document just after 1 p.m., buried in a folder labeled refinancing. Standard language, familiar structure, her signature at the bottom. But the clause she had never read. Redefine control under specific conditions tied to financial authority and operational oversight. Conditions that no longer applied. Conditions that had already shifted. Monica sat down slowly. Emily stepped closer. "What is it?" Monica didn't hand her the paper, didn't explain. She just said the truth, flat and cold. "I signed it away." Emily stared at her. "No, you didn't. You would never." "I did," Monica said, cutting her off. Silence filled the room. Not loud, not chaotic, just empty. Outside, the lake moved the same way it always had. Wind across water. Distant, indifferent. Inside, the house stood exactly as it had the day before. Same walls, same furniture, same view, but without control, without access, without the structure holding it in place. It was just a shell. And for the first time, Monica understood something she had never questioned before. She had lived in a house she never truly owned. And now, it was starting to slip away, piece by piece, with nothing left for her to hold on to. They chose a location. Not the house. Not the lodge. Not anywhere that carried memory. A plain conference office on the 3rd floor of a commercial building that smelled faintly of cleaning solution and recycled air. Neutral walls. Glass table. No decoration beyond a clock that ticked too quietly to notice unless you were already listening for something. I arrived first. Sat down. Placed a folder in front of me. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened. Monica walked in first, controlled but strained, dressed like she was still hosting something important. Emily followed, her movements sharper, less composed, eyes already searching the room like she expected to find something she could still use. Then they saw him. Luke stood by the window. Calm, straight posture, hands at his sides. no performance, no attempt to assert anything beyond presence. Emily stopped mid-step. Who is that? I didn't answer immediately. Sit down, I said. Monica pulled out a chair slowly. Emily didn't, not at first. She kept looking between me and Luke like the situation might rearrange itself if she refused to accept it. Finally, she sat. I opened the folder. Inside were the final documents. Clean, ordered, nothing unnecessary. Monica leaned forward. You've made your point, Nathan. This has gone far enough. I looked at her. No, it hasn't. Emily let out a short, disbelieving laugh. So what? This is punishment? Because of a toast? I slid the first document across the table. Read. She didn't touch it. Monica did. Her eyes moved faster than they had days before, but now she understood enough to recognize what she was seeing. This isn't legal, she said quietly. It is, I replied. Emily pushed the paper away, without reading it. You're being cruel. That word stayed in the air for a second. Cruel. I nodded once, as if considering it. Then I spoke, calm, steady. You mistook patience for weakness. Neither of them moved. You mistook consistency for dependency. Emily's jaw tightened. We were your family. I held her gaze. I was yours, I said. Silence. You treated loyalty like it had no cost. I continued. Like it would continue indefinitely, regardless of how it was valued. Monica's voice cut in, sharper now. We can fix this. I shook my head. It's already finished. Emily looked at Luke again, anger rising. So you just replace us? With him. Luke didn't react, didn't speak. He didn't need to. This isn't replacement, I said. This is direction. Emily stood abruptly. You're destroying everything. No, I said quietly. I stopped maintaining it. That landed. Harder than anything else. Monica closed the folder slowly, her hands no longer steady. What do you want from us? She asked. Nothing. That was the first moment they understood there was no negotiation. No leverage, no role left to play. I stood, buttoned my jacket the same way I had at the lodge. Emily's voice broke slightly now, control slipping. You can't just walk away. I looked at her one last time. I already did. Then I turned, walked to the door, and left the room without waiting for another word. Behind me, for the first time, there was no one expecting me to come back. The silence after I left wasn't immediate. At first, there were voices, sharp, disjointed, Emily pacing, Monica trying to regain control with words that no longer held weight, papers shifting across the table, like movement alone, could undo what had already been set in place. Luke stayed where he was, still, watching, not them, the space they occupied, because even then it was already clearing. Charles arrived later that evening. No announcement, no urgency. He walked into the house the same way he always had, measured, deliberate, but something in him had changed. Not shock, not confusion, recognition. Emily found him in the living room. You need to talk to him, she said immediately. This is insane. He's gone too far. Charles looked at her for a long moment before answering. No, he said. He hasn't. She blinked. What? He did exactly what anyone should do when they realize what they are to the people around them. Monica stepped in then, voice tight. Don't start this. We're fixing it. Charles shook his head once. You're not fixing anything. Emily's frustration broke through. So you're just on his side now? Charles didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. I'm on the side of reality. That stopped her. For a second. Then she pushed back, louder. He abandoned us over nothing. Charles stepped closer, and for the first time in her life, he corrected her. It wasn't nothing. The room went quiet. You said it out loud, he continued, his tone even precise. In front of everyone, you reduced him to a function, a tool. Emily looked away. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, Charles said. Monica tried to interrupt. We're not doing this. But he didn't stop. He built everything you're standing in, Charles said, gesturing slightly around the room, and you treated it like it existed without him. Emily's voice dropped. He didn't have to destroy it. Charles met her eyes. He didn't. That landed. Slow. Unavoidable. He stepped away, Charles said, and everything that depended on him followed. Monica sat down, not gracefully, not in control, just down, because there was nothing left to argue against. The notice arrived 2 days later. Formal, precise, final. Monica read it at the kitchen table. The same place she had once signed documents without looking. This time, she read every word. Access terminated. Control confirmed transferred. Claims invalid. No ambiguity. No appeal. Emily stood across from her, arms wrapped around herself again. But this time there was no anger left. Just something quieter. "What do we do?" she asked. Monica didn't answer, because for the first time, she didn't know. Weeks passed. The house emptied slowly. Not all at once. Just enough, piece by piece, until it no longer felt like it belonged to them. The staff stopped coming. Services ended. Rooms closed. The structure remained. But the life inside it was gone. I didn't go back. I didn't drive past. I didn't check. I already knew what it would look like. Months later, I stood on a different piece of land. Quieter, simpler, no view designed to impress anyone. Just open space and air that didn't carry expectation. There were no voices there, no performance, no one waiting for me to maintain something they didn't value. I built slowly, carefully, only what was necessary, only what I chose. I thought about them once, not with anger, not with satisfaction, just distance, because in the end, I hadn't taken anything from them. I hadn't raised my voice, hadn't tried to hurt them, hadn't needed to. I simply stopped giving them the life they had never respected, and when I did, everything they believed was permanent disappeared, without a sound.